I did something on power in reflection and think ahead time. And I thought this might be useful to share as well. And I'm sort of fine tuning some of the things as I go along here as well. And if you think about here, let's do some definitions. Okay, if you look at think ahead is really around planning for the future, anticipating things, and so forth. In general, it's being about being more proactive than reactive. But when I think ahead, it's about being in the driver's seat, right? So the more you're focused on what you need to do, what you want to accomplish, and so forth, you're more in the driver's seat of your day than the passenger seat. And so that's really think ahead time gets you clear that way. The other one is reflection. And here's some definition about reflection. You're reflecting back over your experiences, your ideas, you're reviewing your thoughts and feelings. You're gaining more clarity and you're keeping your perspective. I don't know anybody who keeps a great perspective without some of these two, particularly a reflection on that. But think ahead and reflection, I think, are very, very important things that we have to put into our life to, one, be more proactive and stay in the driver's seat. And second, use reflection to go faster, thinking about what do we need to do different to go faster. So keep in mind, there's just some general definitions there that way. But as we go through this, think about this in terms of how can you put those two things into your day and your week and so forth that can make you much more proactive and much more clear and with the right perspective to attack things. So I'm going to share these ideas with you as we go, and then I'll open it up at the end for questions, and I'll stay on as long as people might have some questions. Okay. Now, if you think about what do you gain by investing in more think ahead and reflection time? Certain you're going to gain more clarity on the direction. Okay, you cannot hit the direction if you're not clear on that. You're going to be more increased in your self-awareness because you invest more time in, why did that happen? What can I do different? You're going to be more focused with less stress, right? Because you're going to have that perspective. You're going to be able to manage your time more effectively in terms of not getting tons and tons of things done, but maybe getting the right things done in the direction of where you want to go. You're going to be improving your decision making because you're more, thinking ahead. Your assumptions are going to be better, etc. You're going to be more proactive in the way you look at your problem solving. You're going to be able to increase your creativity because the more focused you are, the more creative you're going to get. I'll give you a tip here. If you really want to get creative and you want your people around you to be creative, they need a clear target, which that clarity of direction, and also they need some type of constraint. Because if you have no constraints, unlimited time, money, whatever, there's no need to be creative. So, I always thought in leadership, create, constraints were your friends. And I think constraints help increase people's creativity, but only if they have a clear goal, a clear direction of where they're going. I think Zig Ziglar said this, you cannot hit a target you do not have. And you're not going to be able to get creative without a target. You're going to invest in stronger relationships because you're thinking about who can help you get there. Success is the team sport. You're going to have stronger resilience. And basically, if you're thinking ahead and reflecting, you're more able to manage your emotions and you're more able to handle things that hit you as well. And you're going to enjoy more success. Okay. You're going to achieve more as you think along the way here too as well. So there's some ideas about what you'll gain. Now, look at both pieces here in terms of think ahead. Think ahead, as I said, it's staying in the driver's seat. But what I think is it's being focused on the important. So if you're thinking ahead and so forth, you're keeping more true to your priorities. You're not letting the easy to do get in the way of those things, and you're more focused about what you're going to achieve. So you're going to stay much more clear on your priorities. You're going to decide what's important now in much clearer ways and so forth, because it's what's taking you faster towards what you want to achieve. And you're going to think about how others can help you more too as well, because we're just heads down just trying to achieve things, we're not thinking about who can help, we're not going to accomplish as much. And we're not going to involve other people early enough that really can help us along the way. And then if you think about reflection, it's seeing ways to go faster. But the best definition of reflection I ever heard is this: it's the opportunity to give yourself advice. So if you're reflecting, you're kind of giving yourself better advice about how can you go and move forward and faster. And if you think about it, it's going to help you understand yourself better. And you're going to be able to see what needs to change. And more importantly, here's what I found is you get out of your own way. The more you understand yourself, the more you're seeing where sometimes it's yourself and your own emotions and so forth that are stopping you from achieving what you want. Okay. So those are two areas in terms of think ahead and reflection. Now, where I'd like to spend the most time now is kind of like a framework for you to think about this. And if you think about think ahead and reflection, it's all about, being having a productive perspective, being much more productive going forward, and being able to take faster action. So if you think about that, it's all about time frames as well. So here's a framework that I want to go through with you. And I want you to just sort of think about yourself and what areas could apply to you. What could you do better at? Where do you have to invest more time in, and so forth? So if you think about time frames, we have to think either from where we are today to where we're heading in that direction. We think operational. Operational would be something we think about and do daily and weekly. Strategic could be something we're doing monthly or quarterly. And if you think about direction-wise in terms of legacy and everything, that's more kind of where we're going yearly. So I'm going to give you a framework here of some things to think about. Now, the first thing is about what's driving you. And if you think about what's driving you, it's your goals. Now, some people work on bigger goals all the time. Some people have to break those goals down into smaller segments to get that drive. But the key thing is you have to create some type of pulling power, something that is pulling you along. It's not necessarily just pushing you along. And so I think the most important thing to do is have some goals, have it in front of you, something that you need to achieve, and particularly with a date behind it, right? The when you're going to need to achieve those things. I'll give you a tip. What I found working with very good leaders is they often make their strength into those quarterly goals, because quarterly mean you can accomplish something fairly significant, and it's still short enough to keep people focused that way. I know a CEO who used to always align with his sales and marketing, sort of the engine of the business, 3 top goals every quarter that they would focus on so that they keep the business going and they keep the pipeline coming in and so forth. So keep in mind this is, you're going to have goals at different levels, but the ultimate reason for goals, it's going to create that pulling drive in you to go make things happen. So let's think about action now. If you think about action, I think forget to-do lists. I think the most important thing you can have is a must list. What must be done today? There was a very famous industrialist who was sold some things by a consultant, and the consultant said this: if I can help you to be more productive, will you pay me what the benefit is for that? And so the industrialist said, I'll do that. This was many, many years ago, right after the first depression in the US. And the guy said this, he said, every night or every morning, whatever, but you start the day with the top 3 things you must achieve that day. He says, you might get diverted to different meetings, but you go back to those top 3 things. He paid that guy the equivalent of $1 million today. So I really think instead of to-do, which we never get to the bottom of a to-do list, it's better to have a very, very short must list and put that in front of you. And your musts are really aligned, and you think about it weekly, is aligned to your priorities. right? So you really have to stay focused. And if you're going to stay focused, you got to stay clear on your priorities each week. If you think about monthly there, then it's worrying about progress. What's the progress you need to make to those priorities? And if you think about achievement, it's about the quarterly there, because you can achieve something significant on a quarterly basis, right? That way. And yearly, it's about what are you making progress towards your legacy? What's the actions you're taking towards where you want to go in that legacy? But I think the real key things around here is those musts and those priorities. If your priorities are clear, those musts will become clear, but hold yourself accountable for what you must do each day. And I think it's a matter of, thinking ahead priorities and each week reflecting on your priorities. Are these really clear? And each quarter laying out, reflecting what have you achieved and what are you going to try to achieve the next quarter. So this is more about action now, okay? So those are some ideas around action. If you think about it, you don't get success together. So if you think about what you're going to incur on a daily basis, you're going to have meetings. You're going to have to be involved with linking with other people. Got to be prepared for what you want to get out of the meeting versus being a passenger in the meeting and just being driven around. So always be clear on what you would like to get out of each meetings and be much more outcome focused in your meetings. In my trainings, I often say this: ban the phrase, "we need a meeting to discuss." That's an activity. Always say, "we need a meeting to agree or align on," because meetings are about progress and it's about outcomes. And there's only 3 outcomes for meetings: decisions, actions, and alignment. So I think we need to be much more prepared for our meetings and think ahead. If you think about in terms of working together, it's all about our relationships. And I think it's really important each week to say, are we strengthening the relationships we need in order to help us move towards what and achieve what we want to achieve? One of the most important lists I maintain is a relationship list. And I look at it every week and I say, how warm are those? Have I contacted them recently? Because we always achieve more together, okay? And if you think about why you need the relationships and you think about more strategic view of that, it's the influence we need with others to make things happen, okay? So it's those two go together very well. And it's something that we have to think about. Are we creating relationships in the right direction of the people we need to influence? If you think more strategically, and if you're in leadership positions, you're really thinking beyond influence. You're also thinking about alignment, right? Am I having the right alignment across in order to get things done? And if you're missing the right alignment in certain people in certain places, you're going to struggle to get forward. But I think that together list, really focused on relationships, the influence you need, and where you need to align is key. And if you think about where your relationships are taking you, you have to have that career where you're heading in mind. And when I used to coach global executive MBA students, I always used to say to them, you might not be totally clear on everything that you'd like to hit in your career, but you might see the key options you want to pursue. You need to always build your network and your relationships in the direction of the career you want or the places you want to go. So that's very, very important in that way. So keep in mind that's the together. Now, if you think about it, if you're going to keep achieving more and more, you have to keep growing. So one of the things is, what did I learn today? And reflecting on what I learned, what do I need to learn more of? And, on a weekly basis, evaluating, am I learning at the right pace I need? And I think the key thing around learning, and I'll give you the tip I found over the years, is if you're not learning from others, you're not constantly learning things, reading books, you're not leveraging the life experiences of others, and you just won't grow fast enough. But this learning and the life experiences is so, so important, because when we make judgments and we make decisions, we always have to make assumptions. And if you only are making assumptions based on your own life experiences, it's very narrow and shallow. That's why the people who read a lot of books are meeting people all the time and so forth. They're leveraging the life experiences of others to make better quality assumptions and be better at decision making. So you think about monthly, it's about, okay, do I need to change some things? Been my approach, right? So if you're going to grow, you're going to need to change. And the ultimate goal is habits. And you ask anybody in terms of really experts, they always say it's somewhere between 30 to 70 days to create a new habit or so. And it depends on how frequently you do it, the emotions and so forth behind it. But I think it'd be great if we focus on, like, every quarter, what is the new habit that will help me move forward faster? And each quarter focus on creating that new habit. If you think about it, if you did that every year that way, you'd create 4 new key habits every year. But when I talk to different people in terms of personal development and other things, they say usually everybody is 1 or 2 new habits away from a step change. So that's really what your focus is. You want to grow, your habits make you. They say you create your habits and then your habits create you. And then if you think about it from a growth, it's what's your plan? What's your personal development plan in terms of where you need to grow? One tip I would say is everybody grows faster when they're leveraging their strengths. So, if you're leveraging your strengths and then you're just, reinforcing the weaknesses that maybe slow your strengths, you're going to achieve a lot more. Last thing is, think about this. It's also you, it's your life, and it's also you and your family. And what I found is that you have to consider, I think overall, I think you have 3 parts of your life. You have your work life, you have your family life, and you have life for you. And I think you need something that's happening in all 3 of those things if you're really going to be happy. And just take note of what you hear on an airplane often when we're doing the announcements in terms of the safety and everything. They say put on the oxygen mask first, then put it on for your children and others. So you really you'll never be the best for work or family unless you have you time as well. You have to evaluate each week. Am I putting my focus in the right places? And if you think about it, monthly, it's about, do I need to change something? But you think about quarterly about this, what I found, and here's something interesting, is if you look back on your life, there's 2 things that you always remember. You remember your achievement, which we talked about under action, and you remember your experiences. So if you're thinking about what are the experiences I like to have, people have those bucket lists and things like that. But if you really think about it, what we remember the most are our achievements and our experiences. So if we're not really reflecting on, we want to change, our experiences on it when thinking ahead about it, we're just not going to make things happen. And if you think about overall, if you're going to be the happiest in life, there is no such thing as work-life balance. There's no equal time and this and that. It's about work-life integration. In other words, are you putting the quality time in all 3 areas of your life that's going to give you the most satisfaction or enjoyment, etc., so that you have the right you time, you have the right time for the business and the work, and you have the right time for the family. Okay, so that's a framework in terms of thinking about this in terms of different time periods, and everybody will look at this a little different, okay, and focus in more different areas. But let me share with you where I think you get the most productivity if you look at particular just being focused in this framework. First thing I would say is quarterly goals. If you have goals at a quarterly level, you have time to achieve something significant, but it's short enough to be really focused on that. And it helps you to sort of pick the musts that you're going to have to work on each day and move forward towards that. And that may be not the easiest thing to do. But I don't know about you, the world hits you every day on different things, if you're not spending some time on a weekly basis looking at your priorities, suddenly you're not working on your priorities, you're working on others. And think about this too. A lot of people look at their inbox to determine their priorities, but your inbox is not your priorities. Your inbox is mostly other people's priorities asking something of you. So I would say we got to be focused on our priorities and our musts. We don't get anything done significantly unless we have the relationships built and we know how the influence we need for those relationships, right? And what we're the influence we're trying to have. I know that I do some things on influence now, and always I think the most important question I ask myself is this: how far does my influence need to travel? Because not only do I need the relationships and communications, but I need to be able to give people enough so they can carry my influence further. So you think about that, and what you're going to need to change is you're either going to need to change some habits, or you're going to have to increase the experiences you're having and so forth, which is going to make your life more happy. Habits drive what we do. 96 to 98% of what we do each day is driven by our habits. And only 2 to 4 is our conscious decision about what we're going to do. So if we want to change significant in our life, we have to change our habits. And if we want to experience life in a different way, we have to be much more proactive in our experiences. And then always, always thinking about, integration. Always thinking about what is the quality in each part of our lives, which will get the most from each part of our life. Okay. So that's my sort of framework there. I got about 5 minutes left of the time, but I'll stay on as long as you want. Any comments or questions on this framework that I provided? Any insights you've gained for yourself? Anything where, hey, I need to think more about this? You can just open up your mic and shout away.